Alrighty, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. This one is the most brutal prehistoric injuries ever survived by the Extinct Zoo, I believe was the channel. It is linked in the description below. So if you like this, go to their channel, check out more of their stuff. But this should be interesting. And also, how do they know they survived these injuries? I don't know.
It's no secret that prehistoric Earth is a trove of mystery and wonder. It seems like the further we go back, the crazier things get, and the world looks less and less like the one we occupy today. And because of this, the past has become an interesting time to imagine, especially thinking about what time traveling to back then would be like. Yet, if there really was a magical button that could permanently send you back in time, I am
just
sure
said permanently?
you'd be hard-pressed to, well, press it. Or at least I would. As it doesn't take a genius to figure out that prehistoric Earth was exceptionally brutal, and home to many tough sons of a gun.
Oh, he's
Dinosaurs, saber-tooths, woolly mammoths, mosasaurs, etc., etc. You get the picture.
Is that a Komodo dragon mixed with an alligator?
Their ability are all legendary, but sometimes it takes a real...
Why were they fighting like walruses? Just now.
Get the picture. Their sizes,
it's like how walruses fight. Look at that.
Are all legendary, but sometimes it takes a real unique fossil to remind us of just how metal they truly were. And I would say the most famous examples of this are perhaps those that showcase two animals stuck in eternal battle, like the infamous fighting dinosaurs. Intense, no doubt.
Velociraptor.
But what I think actually demonstrates the true grit of prehistoric animals best are the specimens who bear gruesome wounds, scars, disease, etc. And yet somehow still manage to carry on. In some cases making full recoveries, and making me darn ashamed of how I react to blood tests. And because prehistoric animals were so bonkers, there's actually a long list of examples to choose from. But a pretty good place to start is with an animal that got its face literally snatched. Like, they're not snatched, their face got snatched. And yet somehow lived to tell the tale.
Their face got snatched?
A prognathodon. Now, you might not have heard of this animal before, but it belonged to the iconic mosasaurs, and was actually one of the largest members to have appeared, with the longest specimens in record reaching about 12 meters or 39 feet from snout to tail, while being heavier than certain whales. So, obviously a chunkster, and even among mosasaurs, it was known for having strangely massive jaws that were backed by absurdly powerful muscles and thick conical pocket knife-sized teeth, which had a mix of serrations and smooth surfaces. And so, it's no shocker that this was a top predator who found immense success in North America, Africa, Europe, and Australia throughout the late Cretaceous. And based on its teeth, the areas it lived, and direct predatory evidence, it is believed to have been a hunter of virtually everything, with one specimen alone showing gut contents consisting of fish, cephalopods, and turtles. So when you combine this range with the aggressive nature of mosasaurs in general, what you get is the realization that others of their kind were fair game from time to time, meaning cannibalism. And an absolutely gruesome example of this was seen in the specimen dubbed NHMM 2012-072. Discovered in the Netherlands, this prehistoric trooper had a pretty obvious wound, and that was that its face was essentially missing. To be more specific, huge chunks of its upper jaw, cortical bone, and parts of its premaxilla had all been stripped away by something ridiculously powerful. And given the size of the actual victim, it's presumed that said something was another mosasaur. Perhaps even a fellow prognathodon was to blame, who was trying to cannibalize our protagonist. Now, close your eyes and take a second to imagine what it would be like to have your upper jaw straight up annihilated. And not only this, but to have this happen in the wild millions of years ago with no medical care. And
it's gonna be painful.
Just for the sake of imagination, you also have flippers instead of hands, so you can't even cover your fresh new gaping wound. Not super great chances, eh?
No,
and for most people,
not really.
An obliterated jaw without serious medical intervention, or even with, would likely be fatal. But for this prognathodon, it was just another Tuesday.
No, I think he was wishing for death. It's gotta be.
And despite this heaping hole where its face should have been, the specimen seems to have survived for a long time, with it showing signs of healing both in the surrounding tissue and the actual bones. However, obviously the healing would have been excruciating, as between the blood loss, screaming nerve endings, and massive tissue trauma, the inflammation was so intense that it caused enough pressure to seize blood flow in certain areas, leading to sections of its face becoming essentially dead tissue. And as if this wasn't enough, problems would also arise later on as bacteria seeped into this wound, causing infection. And though the prognathodon had survived the actual physical wound for an extensive time, possibly even longer than a year, it seems that subsequent bacterial infection might have been its undoing. Not through any organ failure, mind you, but rather the predator reached a point where it could just no longer operate its jaws, or what was left of it, and thus slowly starved. But let me restate, it was actually fine without the jaws, relatively speaking. It was just the pesky bacteria that officially ruined the party down the road.
But if it's but if it was missing its upper jaw, it would have starved eventually, right? How is it going to eat? Or is it just half of its upper jaw it was missing? I don't know. But if it was it just half or was it the whole thing? Like the whole top off here is just gone. Because if it's that, it definitely would have starved to death.
Certified badass. But not
True.
every catastrophic injury eventually leads to this outcome. Some animals recover near 100%. And perhaps none show as much durability as the king of prehistory
The
itself,
Tyrannosaurus?
the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Let me tell you, through the years,
Ooh.
not one, but
Jesus, he got that Shin Godzilla look going on here. The fucking split bottom jaw.
multiple specimens have proven that this behemoth truly earned its title. And actually, it's some of the most famous specimens that you've probably heard of that bear the most gruesome pathologies that we know. Take Stan, for example, a titan of a Rex
Stan?
that was discovered in 1987.
Okay,
living
that's one hell of a
66
name,
million
though.
years ago, and was about 11.8 meters or 38.6 feet long. So, an absolute unit, and undoubtedly an apex predator. But as its skeleton so shows, being king
Dang,
was
his
not
jaw's
easy,
fucked
and Stan
up.
was riddled in numerous wounds and diseases. Off the bat, puncture marks were located on the back of the skull and ribs that were both deep and wide. It only fit the description of one tooth that we know of, a tooth of another T-Rex. Meaning, Stan fought horrific battles against other tyrants and yet lived to tell the tale. And these weren't any love bites,
mean it won?
being absolutely deep enough to cause horrific pain. And in the case of the skull bite, a nasty concussion at the very, very minimum, as it was bad enough to puncture his brain case.
I mean, that's a terrible place to bite for, though. If he bites down, he's biting down on the top of yours. Okay, well. But at the same time, if you bite down there, you're going to make his teeth sink deeper into your jaw, too. That's a fucking lose-lose situation there. Holy shit. Terrible. Look at his face. He is not happy.
Yet, apparently for Stan, this was light work, and not even the worst of it, as a third bite to the base of his skull showed signs of having literally broken his neck. Now, I think I need not tell you that a broken neck is typically fatal news.
Yeah.
But for a T-Rex, I guess it's just an unpleasant nuisance,
Jesus.
as it ended up healing over time.
It just looks like something you see in, what was that show? Oh god, what was that show with the caveman and the Tyrannosaurus friend? Primal? Yeah, that looks like it's coming out from Primal.
Now, the healing was by no means perfect, as the damage caused growth of excess bone and the fusion of two vertebrae, leading to certain chronic discomfort and mobility issues for the rest of Stan's life.
Yeah, that's true.
Making
How
its
long
long-term
was
survival just that much more amazing.
How long
and
was
if this
this
wasn't enough,
last
bites to his cheeks,
the rest of his life?
jaw, and fractured ribs from blunt trauma were all on the menu as well.
Damn.
Even the tiniest of nasties didn't leave Stan alone, with round holes to his face implying that bone-eating parasites became a daily part of his life at some point too. And so,
I'm sorry,
all
what?
this together is clearly a lot, and no easy
Bone-eating
feat to survive.
parasites.
And yet, Stan managed to continue hunting and defending his territory.
For
with
how
the true
long?
insanity of all of this being that it wasn't these injuries that even eventually got him.
Was it
Rather,
age?
old age.
Holy
with his
shit.
estimated age at death being about 24 years old, which is very respectable for a large theropod. However, he ain't the only Rex to have gone through the ringer. And actually, the most famous one out there might have him beat, living far longer in spite of horrifying injuries.
Jesus.
And yes, I'm talking about good old Sue.
Sue?
If you like dinosaurs, you've heard of Sue.
What's with these names? Stan and Sue? You can come up with some better names? Face Stripper 5000 would have been pretty cool for Tyrannosaurus. Come on.
But what I bet you didn't hear of was that its life wasn't all glamorous either, despite being queen. Or perhaps king. And throughout it, Sue endured what should have been career-ending injuries, so you could say. One such example was a badly damaged right shoulder blade that made the usage of the arm rather dubious.
Really?
While the same
What?
limb also suffered a torn tendon at some point.
Ooh.
And it's thought that this
That's not
injury was
gonna heal
actually
well.
inflicted during a struggle with prey, which in the T-Rex's case were also giants in their own right. And it seems that in the
So he
midst
got
of battle,
kicked?
Sue also ended up with not one, but 3 broken ribs.
Ooh.
And yet, of course, in typical Sue fashion, or perhaps T-Rex fashion, she survived well past this incident, with signs of healing being very obvious. Then on top of violent injuries, Sue also had to deal with multiple health ailments as well, most notably being that its left fibula was grossly enlarged, and she also had fused caudal vertebrae, both believed to have been caused by different infections that sprung up.
Oh.
Its massive tail was also fused and badly damaged, attributed to arthritis due to repeated injuries.
So it's not moving all that well, then, is it? God damn, this one's missing the tip of its tail
While
here.
signs of gout, a complex form of arthritis, also affected Sue as well.
Ooh, that
And just
looks
for that
painful
final
as
cherry on
fuck.
top, Sue, like many T-Rexes, like Stan,
Bone-eating
had
worms?
holes in the front of the skull. At first, these
Or
ones were thought to
bone-eating
have come from a
bacteria?
run-in with another Tyrannosaur, or perhaps being due to a bacterial infection. Yet, after
not?
more analysis, the true answer became a bit more nauseating, which is that Sue likely had an infestation of parasites that burrowed into its jaw and feasted on the Titanic skull. And so, with all of this pathology, it's pretty insane that Sue could survive, let alone thrive. But of course, thrive Sue did, reaching full maturity and achieving a massive size, over 40 feet, or 12.3 meters in length, while weighing up to 14 tons, making an African elephant seem like a freaking shrimp. And then a final middle finger to its injuries, Sue also ended up living for a very long time, relatively speaking, only passing away at 33 years old, which makes Sue not only long-lived, but the longest-lived specimen ever recovered.
Really?
Talk about an eventful life.
34 is
but honestly,
33 is the
it
longest
wasn't just
lived?
the kings and queens taking some heat, as there are a boatload of crazy dino injuries out there. And while I do want to come back to them, I wouldn't want us mammals feeling left out, because we certainly dealt with some crazy BS too, including, by the way, prehistoric humans, who were obviously just built different. And if you've seen one of my older videos, you know that Neanderthals in particular could be quite the metal bunch. And perhaps no Neanderthal specimen proved this as much as Shanidar 1, lovingly nicknamed Nandy, who I personally think also goes down as the toughest fossilized hominin thus far.
Why does Neanderthal bones get the better name? Sanidar? Is that what it was? Shanidar? Shanidar sounds way better than Stan and Sue, I'll say that much.
Nandy, who I personally think also goes down as the toughest fossilized hominin thus far. To set the stage a bit, Nandy was a roughly 45 to 65,000 year old Neanderthal that lived in what is now Iraq, occupying a cave, and lived such an extremely harsh life that it was even immediately clear to excavators, who quickly noted his severely deformed skeleton. Now, violence wouldn't have been a stranger to people back in those times, and it seems to have been responsible for at least a few of his ailments, including one of the most prominent injuries that occurred early in life,
broken
a
skull?
crushing blow to the head, possibly from a blunt force weapon.
Damn.
And let's just say, this was no walked into a wall on accident kind of blow, but rather a major violent strike to the left side of his skull, which not only shattered his left orbit, blinding him in his eye, but also left him with a permanent traumatic brain injury that caused various developmental issues and damaged the part of his brain responsible for controlling his right side. And this in turn might have led to some degree of paralysis, contributing to another major problem observed: his extremely shrunken, withered right arm and leg, that's also been blamed on a degenerative disease. And living like this certainly was not easy, as the withering of the limbs made him susceptible to even more accidents and injuries, which was reflected by the deformed arms, which bore signs of having been fractured in not one, but several places, maybe from a fall, and thus further impairing his muscle functionality.
How did you hunt, my man?
From this, it does seem that the break directly or indirectly led to the loss of his lower arm and hand, which were missing and might have been surgically amputated. So
by who?
We're not off to a nice start for Nandy, and sadly for him, we are still at the start, because the list of problems remains long.
Yes, surgically amputated, I don't think I'm supposed to be thinking of it like, you know, with a knife and scalpel and all that. I think that just means they crushed it between rocks or some shit to get it off. Wow, what do you mean surgically removed? By a Neanderthal surgically removed an arm 65,000 years ago? Fucking hell, I just see like the fucking busted up arm like resting on top of a rock. Is either he himself or somebody else just get another bigger rock, just bashing that bitch on top of the arm until it comes off. Which sounds horribly painful, and I think I'd rather die.
Moving downwards, we see on his legs that each was broken in either a single or separate events.
God,
now we don't have a clue as to what caused these breaks.
Did this man fall off a cliff or something and survive, or what? 'Cause that's what it sounded like if he broke both of his legs and his arm, and possibly broke his arm badly enough that he fucking lost it. It sounds like he just fell off a cliff. Did you fall off a cliff?
Yet they clearly made life just that much more painful for Nandy, and left him with a pronounced and bothersome limp.
Well, yeah, no shit.
Worsened by an additional foot injury, wherein he fractured his right metatarsal. So here the poor man is, limping around with brain damage, can't see much.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Did he get smacked in the head and then thrown off a cliff or something? Were they fighting near a cliff and he got smacked in the head and just... Holy shit, how does that even happen?
Having exostosis.
Oh, he's pretty much
lesions
deaf.
that completely blocked his right ear canal and partially closed his left. And together, this all left him limited in many of the senses from which we derive pleasure. And not even his taste was left alone.
Oh, Jesus, man.
As to compensate for his limited arm functionality, Nandy apparently used his teeth a lot more as tools, in order to grip or tear items. resulting in them
sucks.
being seriously worn down and causing sensitivity to cold and heat, a poor bite, and certainly painful jaw and headaches, making even eating an unenjoyable event. So at this point, he really didn't need any more problems. But just to round it out, his body also shows signs of suffering from DISH, which stands for diffuse idiopathic skeletal hyperostosis, and occurs when normal calcification, or bone formations, grow in various parts of the body, leading to pain, stiffness, and further mobility issues.
Well,
so all in all, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that Nandy should have died very early on. And yet, he didn't, despite the pedigree of his problems, which says two things. One, someone owed this guy at least 100 drinks, and two, that he had some help, as there is no way that a Neanderthal, or let alone Homo sapien, could have survived alone with such injuries.
True.
Injuries that made his day-to-day...
Shit, probably not even today can you live alone with all this bullshit going on with you and survive. Seriously, you'd probably be dead on the street.
Life excruciating, and would have prevented him from even completing simple tasks. And we do know that he actually didn't live alone, with the cave in which he was found containing at least 10 other individuals that presumably helped to care for him. And what this also shows, at least you could argue, is that his survival demonstrates a degree of empathy and love, because as one paleontologist put it, Nandy would not have been able to offer anything meaningful to the others, and thus was kept alive because they cared for who he was.
How old was he?
Neanderthal healthcare sure turned out to be quite effective, as Nandy defied the odds, and lived until approximately 45 years old, making him an elder for the time, and in fact, the oldest specimen from the cave, which is truly impressive. And really, prehistoric humans in general are kind of known for being tough cookies. I mean, even large massacre sites show this.
I know this is not funny because they look like they were in the middle of a party just having a great time, putting their hands in the air like they just don't care. I know that's not true, but it just looks like that to me. I'm a fucking terrible person, apparently.
Deceased individuals typically had signs of surviving previous attacks, often shrugging off spear stabs, blows to the head with blunted weapons, and severe lacerations, which in some cases even took their limbs clean off. What's really interesting to me about the whole Nandy situation is that researchers basically said, well, this proves cooperation because bro had no chance alone. And actually, the same logic has also been applied to another animal, in which socialness has often been a topic of debate. The Smilodon.
Smilodon,
Yep. Just like the king of the Cretaceous, the king of the Ice Age could also have it rough. And no place shows this better than the La Brea tar pits, a predator trap which to date has yielded over 8,000 cases of paleopathology.
Heard of that place.
Amongst them you'll see bacterial infections, broken teeth from biting too hard, fractured bones,
biting too hard.
But there is one specimen amongst the bunch that really sticks out, and is often considered the most striking example of this from the La Brea tar pits. LAC-MHC 131. This is actually Smilodon fatalis pelvis.
Just give him, like, actual name, LAC-MHC 131. What the fuck does that mean? Just give him a name.
Discovered in the 1930s. That can be nicely summed up as mishappened, with the right hip clearly being malformed in shape and heavily destroyed, while the left side remained fairly normal, giving us a good contrast of just how banged up this pelvic bone really was. At first, it was believed
is this breaking something?
that a traumatic injury
just making sure.
In question. But after recent scans of the bone, the cause was revised to a devastating birth defect, where upon infancy, the pelvis started to remodel, and not in a good way, with the socket and ball joint being heavily impacted as well. And as one study described it, the joints were essentially obliterated. Overall, this was not good news for Diego. Albeit, it may not sound super fatal, seeing that in people today a broken pelvis, or a deformed one, is not necessarily life-threatening to an otherwise healthy individual.
It is if you gotta hunt for your food like they do.
The key difference here is that Smilodons just didn't have access to modern healthcare, obviously. And their prey was pretty much exclusively giant megafaunal beasts like literal mammoths. Thus, a severely dysfunctional pelvis would be a literal death sentence, with it hampering the means of it grappling with large prey or chasing them down. On top of this,
he went all in on that.
Would have needed to sort out on how to defend territory and compete with other predators as well. Both rather unlikely stories with barely functioning legs. And yet, despite these hurdles, this specimen clearly ended up living into adulthood, something deemed impossible for it to do if the Smilodon truly was a lone predator. And thus, some have referenced this specimen as strong evidence of gregarious behavior in saber-toothed cats, with the proposed idea being that its familial unit would share its meal and take care of defending territory. As like Nandy, this specimen would not be able to participate in many activities, even if it could somehow get over the functionality problems, as the banged up pelvis also resulted in chronic debilitating pain. So yes, we mammals have suffered our fair share. But I do want to bounce back to dinosaurs again, because I can't lie, they've got some even crazier stories.
Yeah, I'm not
Remember
surprised.
the Prognathodon from earlier who got his
They
face
all
snatched?
deadly
Well,
motherfuckers.
there's a dinosaur that got his or her head snatched, and yet lived to tell the tale.
Head?
This story begins 67 million years ago in
Head.
the Greek region.
So as in they only have the neck down now. What?
And evolved an adult Edmontosaurus annectens,
Okay.
a species of hadrosaur, who are often slept on, but definitely shouldn't be, because the adults
Like the little
were massive
tiny
giants,
fin on the top
with
of its
individuals
head.
routinely rivaling the sizes of elephants. And they were certainly a hardy lot,
Ooh.
demonstrated by our specimen in question, who came in the form of a skull,
That's
or
a
should I
big
say,
boy, yeah.
part of a skull. As overall, a huge chunk of it was just gone. To be precise, a section of its right brain case had violently
Ooh.
been removed, with large drag marks around the wound, implying that a powerful bone-crushing bite was to blame. And the
Holy
affected area
shit.
wasn't just wide, but deep as well, exposing parts of the soft tissue underneath.
Jeez, did it
So
keep
I
its
guess you could
eyes?
say you really could have dove into the mind of this dinosaur. Jokes aside, catastrophic injuries putting it lightly. And it was probably even worse than simple bone removal, as along with the skull they found a patch of essentially fossilized skin and meat that came, by the way, from
Ew.
above the victim's right eye, and was seemingly stripped clean off, with the eye
Ugh.
possibly being removed as well.
Oh, that
And
sucks,
so another way
man.
to think about this
Holy
is that
shit.
this guy got hit so hard by something that its bone left its body and then took a bunch of meat and skin with it.
Mm.
Yeah, a little bit nasty. And this
Really
all begs
nasty,
the question
holy-
of what could really do something so devastating to an elephant-sized behemoth in Hell Creek in the first place.
Mm.
And there's really only one answer.
T-Rex?
A Tyrannosaurus straight up bit its face. Now,
Right off,
getting
huh?
headshot by a T-Rex surely
Oh,
is not
shit,
fun,
that is-
and usually fatal.
That's a
But
fatal
somehow,
headshot,
it
that's for
wasn't
sure.
in this case, as the Edmontosaurus showed clear signs of bone growth at healing, indicating it was an actual case of failed predation in the late Cretaceous, despite again the fact that its head was, nearly ripped off.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's
unsurprisingly,
wild.
this specimen probably takes the cake for dinosaurs when it comes to surviving singular injuries. Yet, I can't talk about pathology in dinos without mentioning
It's not a
the walking
T-Rex, is it?
triage unit, Big Al.
Big Al.
I sincerely hope you've heard this name before. But in
No,
case you
I
haven't,
haven't.
it is just about the most well-known Allosaurus out there. And while its fame has come from Al being 95% complete, he or she is also fairly well known for being extremely banged up. And it almost seems like Mother Nature had a Jurassic hit.
Allosaurus
out
had
on Al,
never seen
as through
such
its life,
bullshit
the
before.
Allosaurus endured a whopping 19 different major injuries that covered large parts of the body.
Damn.
This included multiple rib fractures and breaks, a ripped right hand, a punctured hole to its shoulder, numerous infections, including in the jaw by the way, fused
Of course.
vertebrae from traumatic collisions,
Does he have holes in his jaw from the fucking worms that eat bone or whatever the fuck those were?
a broken tail, and a damaged gastralia, which are bones that support the abdomen. So, lots of tummy aches for Al.
Yeah.
It's believed that
a
many
lot
of these
pain.
ailments came from falls or scraps with prey, and possibly
Ooh.
competition, and shows
Why
us
go-
just how much of an
He must have had a head injury before, because if he's trying to walk into a 2v1 over there.
active life Allosaurus has had, plus how hardcore they could be, as none of the injuries I mentioned actually killed him. But that said, one finally did, the
Oh.
19th, which came in the form of a badly broken left foot that likely happened again during another hunting
Oh.
accident. Now, the
He
broken
wasn't able
bones
to move?
themselves would have limited Al, but the true problems kicked in
Did he starve to death? I'm guessing starved to death.
when the wound became severely infected.
Oh.
Infected to
Wrong.
the point the bone essentially started to rot, making walking exceedingly
Mm.
hard, if possible at all. And Big Al presumably eventually starved from this because it was unable to hunt. And what's quite
was
ironic
right.
about all of this is that years after Al's discovery, a second well-preserved Allosaurus was also discovered, who was subsequently then named after it. And thus we got Big Al too.
Big
And it
Al.
coincidentally turns out that it too, pun intended,
That's some
was
lazy
riddled
num-
in
that's some
injuries,
lazy naming,
as
though.
showcased by this diagram. Similar to Al numero uno, it's thought that this specimen earned its
Oh,
scars in battle
shit.
via scraps of prey and foe alike, with some damage to its face even being attributed to facial biting from fellow Allosauruses. The big difference with it, though, is that unlike the original, Mr. 2 suffered a major foot injury as well, yet survived that ordeal and reached full maturity, as opposed to Al 1, who died as a sub-adult.
Really?
Yet,
So he was young. Big Al numero uno was pretty young, huh?
fate would catch up with number 2 regardless, as in adulthood it suffered a severe fracture to its ischium, a bone that supported the pelvis and numerous muscles.
So the penis
And from
bone.
this, it never recovered.
Really?
But how this happened is a complete mystery, especially when considering that this kind of break is almost never seen in large theropods.
Huh.
So pretty odd. Now,
Got fucked by a brachiosaur or something.
I could go on and on about dinosaur pathology, but there is one more interesting non-dino that I want to end with.
What are
As stated with
you?
the first Big Al, its death apparently came from a single foot injury. And no doubt if you found yourself limited to just one leg, you'd be in for some trouble. And if both legs are out of order, well, good luck.
Yeah.
But then let's say, just for laughs and giggles, your arms were incapacitated too, which in this case, there really ain't much you can do. Well, I guess that only applies if you're human, that is. Apparently. Since in 1948, paleontologists stumbled upon a specimen that defied those odds. A one-of-a-kind Smilasuchus. When first discovered, it wasn't its pathologies that gripped the attention of the team, but the size and preservation of the animal in question, which was a giant Triassic-dated phytosaur that could even rival the megacrocs seen in the Jurassic and Cretaceous, with adults measuring up to 12 meters or 39 feet long. And being a phytosaur of this size meant that this specimen would have been one robust, mean killing machine. If, and big if, it hadn't been for some pretty limiting injuries. Across its titanic body, the team found not 1, but 8 bones in bad shape that were covered in extensive exostoses, which, if you recall, are bony growths that can occur after direct trauma, highlighting that this phytosaur endured some breaks and fractures, which then became infected. But that's not too crazy compared to the other examples just yet. But what was highly odd, and unfortunate for the phytosaur, was that all 8 of the afflicted bones were concentrated to the lips,
the arms and legs.
And literally
oh god,
all
that
4
just
of them,
fucking sucks.
Not a single one being spared, with its left humerus, right ulna, and then both of its femora and fibula bearing damage, plus at least 2 metapodials. Now, it will be almost impossible to ever say just how exactly this phytosaur ended up with such varying pathologies, but interspecific competition has loosely been cited before, and we do see that in some modern reptiles, limb biting is not unheard of. However, with this said, you would expect something this big biting another one's limb to result in amputations, not just broken bones. But because phytosaurs were much more extensively armored than even modern crocodiles, it is possible that blunt damage from bites was an actual possibility. And one aspect that clearly supports this is that it would have been virtually impossible for this specimen to have received all of its injuries in just one event, with the spread nature just being too coincidental. Therefore, we can just say that it simply suffered from exceptionally bad odds. And these poor odds were only exacerbated by the time the phytosaur lived in.
Maybe he fell off a cliff too. Just landed on all 4 of his limbs though. Like those are like some of those cartoons where they just fall from a great height, land on their feet. It's like, I'm okay, and then fucking fall over unconscious after that.
The late Triassic, a brutal era with arid conditions, significant droughts in the area it resided, and numerous competing predators. However, the fact that it didn't die from 1 messed up limb, let alone 4, is a prehistoric miracle.
How long did it survive?
Not only did it survive in this state for a few days or something, but at the very least, several painful months. And that's only after receiving its final wound. In other words, it could have been living with 2 or even 3 injured limbs for years prior, likely benefiting in some sense from its semi-aquatic lifestyle. And the team also reckoned it benefited from the lower metabolic rates seen in phytosaurs, which allowed it to live far longer than you'd expect a mammal to if they were not able to easily get food.
I mean, can't gators and crocs live for like months without eating or something like that? Or is it just a month? I don't know, but they can live for a while without eating, can't they?
Yet, advantages aside, this individual is still an absolute unit to keep chugging along with all the injuries that racked up.
Yeah, especially
fact,
when it's
commonly touted as being the most pathological specimen from the entire Triassic period. An achievement which I can't say I'm particularly jealous of.
Yeah,
proving just once more how absurdly resilient prehistoric animals were. Thanks for watching, and until next time.
Resilient may be, but that's still gotta suck. Yeah, that's still gotta suck major ass. Ain't no... Most brutal deaths ever preserved. I'm gonna have to take a look at that one next, right over here. You can see kind of the thumbnail. Yeah, most brutal deaths ever preserved. I'm gonna have to take a look at that one next. Shit. And if you want to take a look at that one before I do, go ahead and go to the Extinct Zoo's channel, which is linked in the description below. I hope I said that in the beginning. But yeah, till then, y'all, be careful out there. Don't fall off any cliffs. Don't get smacked in the head. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye.